Hi friends, this is Sarah from Crafting and Relaxing. Welcome. This is a process video that I made for Smash That Small Paper Pad. If you haven't seen that video, well, you don't have to go back and watch it. You could watch all the process video and then see the final result. This one I sped up. Then the second one is real time, sort of dealing with ephemera and figuring out what I'm going to do. And then the last part is sped up again. You can tell me if you like this or if you think it was a terrible format. It just sort of happened because I wanted to share the logic with you on sorting the ephemera because it wasn't as obvious. Here, I'm taking the paper pad apart. I'm trying to figure out which sides I like. Honestly, I am such a messy crafter that I don't know that it adds any value for me to do it this way because I move stuff around so much. But it does let me see what's in the paper pad and think about, do I want to use these? This one had some nice sentiments, but they were kind of small. It's just, you have to look at it to see what you have and what you like, right? If I was super tidy, I would work my way across the top and not mess up the papers and not resort them 17 times, but that's not me. I applaud those of you who are. I love to watch Christy Marcotte, but I just don't work like her. So my process videos share how I do things. Sometimes I set up extra tables and I do a big old assembly line, but this one was, I started on a Friday night. And what I did was I thought, I'm going to take that paper pad apart, and I love opening up a new paper pad, so I'm sure I'll just be gung-ho, and I was tired. Then I opened up the ephemera and started looking at it, and I thought, no, maybe I don't want to make cards, because if I get in a hurry, I'll take all those parts, start slapping them together, not think about how I'm going to embellish, what cardstock I might want to use for layers. So I'm really looking at all the different fall fun ephemera that I have. These are some Pebbles pieces that the package never got opened last year. I have a couple different Carta ephemera packs, and I'm just getting out all the fun stuff. I think that sometimes we get in our heads that everything has to match, and it doesn't. In fact, my cards will look different than yours if I use the junk on my counter. And I think it's important to know that you can die cut, you can create your own stuff. This is my going to bed kit, okay? So it's Friday. It's probably only, I'm going to be honest with you, like 7 p.m., but I was just wiped out. This is the Tea-Dye Distress Oxide ink. It was a little light, but it was nice for a first coat. Then later I got out Vintage Photo. So you're going to see later in processes that I'm hitting things with Vintage Photo. Those leaves were just too white, and so I inked them up and set them aside to dry. And I didn't want to take that into bed with me, those leaves. I just wanted to put them here to dry. So that's my kit, and I have it. Then we're back, and it's the next day. My kit is off to the side, and I'm getting my card bases ready. I'm caffeinated. It's early Saturday morning. We've totally got this. I have to tell you, I whipped out like 10 card fronts, probably, I don't know, maybe even before Noni got out of bed. These are the measurements. Sometimes you guys ask me for measurements. This is just a little notebook where I write stuff down so I don't have to remember. And if I'm watching TV or watching videos or singing with music, I will miscut. I've done this a million times and I still will miscut. So the card base where it says parenthesis white, that's the piece you fold in half and build your card on. Then my base layer, I call it the small pattern. I like to have a cute little pattern that will show itself with just the edges going around. So little polka dots, little florals, little plaids, whatever it is. Then I have my cardstock mat. And then I have what I call my big pattern, which later as I got tired confused me because it's my small piece of paper. But that pumpkin piece right there, see how those are big patterns? And if I tried to use that for the background layer, it just wouldn't work. But the little orange dotty things work and they're cute. So this is when I'm thinking and I'm looking at my measurements, I'm remembering to use some craft cardstock in between the layers. Had I gotten gung-ho on a Friday night, I might have just put the two patterned papers together and not even thought about it. Or sometimes, if I just need a lot of cards really, really fast. I think when I did the 67 cards for the school staff, I don't know that I used a cardstock in there, and that's because time was of the essence. These cards, it's August. I figure I want to give them out in September. It's a little weird to send somebody a fall card in the middle of August. So I still have time. I'm not on a tough deadline, and I love fall cards, leaves and trees. I'm a Pacific Northwest girl. I need trees in my life. And I have evergreen trees here when I travel. I don't understand how the rest of you survive. Okay, so here's my little kit, and I'm going through it, and I'm actually prepping it to go and watch TV with, I think, is what I'm doing. Here, I checked out the tea dye, and it was way too light to use on craft cardstock. It kind of looked like you were highlighting, not darkening up the edges. So then I got out the vintage photo and checked it. In the end, I didn't like the makeup brush for just doing the edges. Now we're coming back in, and I have my gold pen out, and I'm adding some accents to the embellishments that I've put together off camera in bed. So I put little bits of bling together and puffy stickers, and you'll see a bunch of these ephemera pieces with a craft backing. I just glue them on and then fussy cut around them. If you think you can't fussy cut, you just need to practice. I hated it. I still don't love it, but I think I don't totally suck at it anymore, and it doesn't make me quite as angry. I think I'm getting better. I had a lot of training from Cindy at Impressing Ideas in the state of Washington. Every time I went to visit her, we would try different scissors, and she would coach me on it. The trick is, don't move the scissors so much, move the paper. Here, I'm adjusting my measurements because I want more of the red paper to show, because it has a lot of space between its little pattern, and so I'm trying to make some adjustments to get paper preference considered. Does that make sense? I'm just tweaking and adjusting things as I go, and I will always use craft cardstock, so it doesn't matter. I could miscut it all day long, but what I'm trying to do is, oh, I know. I wasn't trying to show more of the red. I was trying to make it bigger because that ephemera piece was so big. And I wanted it to lay nicely on the front piece of paper. Does that make sense? My other ones were only 3.5 inches. And so I wanted to this one to be, this plaid layer to be as big as it could possibly be. And then I just hit a little bit of it with vintage photo. I'm not great at inking the edges. I very often forget. And I don't feel like it's a requirement for a card. It is a preference thing. You do whatever makes you happy. My apologies. I do have a tendency to zoom in, but I wanted to save this process video for you, so hopefully it's worth it. Sometimes I do get way out of frame. And I know I could clean up my desk and then there would be more room. I switch in this video between Barely Arts glue, my ATG gun, at some point I'm going to use some Gina K. I don't know where my art glitter glue was. It must have just been out of reach, or maybe it was on one of those trays I took to bed, so I didn't really use it. There isn't one perfect glue for everything that you glue. Just find one that you like, that you will use. I will say that Barely Arts, I was messier with it. It got on the counter more. You just need so little of it, and it moves about a second longer than art glitter glue. Art glitter glue stuff just sticks down and it's not forgiving. I have a tendency with Barely Arts, because I've used art glitter so much, to slide things that I didn't want to slide because I would have expected them to have been stuck. Those tags, grateful hearts and thank you, they were tags. See, I cut the little toppers off. They were a little too tall. I don't I don't know. I just wasn't feeling them, and I was trying to figure out how to work them into a card because they're very thin, so I didn't want to put strings through them and then have to back them as tags and deal with building them up. So I just took off the tag part. I think they're still cute. I'm experimenting with this Love Life. The pattern was just too busy, and the papers I used were too loud, so probably not. I'm reorganizing, going through and saying, okay, what do I like? What works? There's no right or wrong. I don't have a sequence. I don't use the orange embellishments and then the green embellishments. I don't plan what goes with what. I just grab papers I like and then grab ephemera that I like and see where the day takes me. I've even, in editing my videos, noticed that I will lay out the cutest card ever, then get sidetracked by something shiny and never make that card. See there, I had Barely Arts. It crept out from under the edge of that. So art glitter glue probably would have stuck a little better. And that's not the glue's fault, that's the user. I'm using a little too much and I'm moving a little too fast for it. Here's an example of trimming my ephemera. I put it on the cardstock and then I just trimmed the corners. I figured I could try a hole puncher, but I would never get it straight, so I'd just try some scissors. I like the leaves. I'm playing with them. I don't know. They were a little big. Just couldn't quite make it happen. And I think it's important to know, Noni said that I said something in a video about how long it takes or how much work it is. When you watch videos, don't think that everything came together perfectly and it was easy. Remember, these videos are sped up. If I got stumped and I went to drink coffee, I didn't let the camera run for 10 minutes. I'll try and tell you later when I can tell that I'm struggling. But, sometimes you get down to a point where you don't love the papers and you're really trying to figure out what to do. Here, I love the leaves, so I'm still having fun. My adhesive got away from me a little bit, had to rein it back in. ATG kind of rolls off. You don't have any problems. Okay, this is one of my tricks. See it? I glued the patterned leaf paper down, not centered, so I just trimmed it. Then it looks like I did a good job centering it. I didn't. There's no rule that says you have to stick with the measurements you built the card with. You're going to see me do that a million times in this video where I have those little shaves off of craft cardstock. Depending on your paper cutter, if you have like a Fiskars, what do we call those? I like the Fiskars where you shuffle the blade back and forth with a plastic track. You probably can't take a hair off of 65-pound cardstock like I can. So you'll just have to accept it. If you put it together crooked, you'll just have to say, I'm okay with that. Because if you try and do those, you'll probably get it like someone gnawed on it. I've seen people take scissors and trim it beautifully. That is not a skill I have. But I realized when I was doing this, that is one of the advantages to the paper cutters I have. I have paper cutters that are metal on metal, and you can cut a hairline off if you want. I mean, seriously, paper's so thin it curls. Just fiddling with leaves. These are some leaves I made, some leaves my friend Noni made. Just having a great time. And see how I'm holding my finger down for a long time? That is because I used Barely Art. I should have stopped and gone to find my art glitter glue at some point. I probably would have been better off. It's just a learning curve. But when I go to glue on giant embellishments or those like vinyl plasticky pieces, Barely Art is the one I want. I tell you that. I haven't had anything fall off. And if I mail you a card and the embellishments fall off in the mail, I want you to tell me. I want a message on that. Okay, this is a non-fall paper. Can we call it that? And what I'm doing is I'm laying out a sympathy card. And I'm trying to think about, are there papers in here where if I'm careful and I grab 2 or 3 together, does it look like the card has no season whatsoever? I think you can do that a lot in collections. I think you can take a little boy's birthday collection and make a sympathy card. You could somehow find some solid colors in a dinosaur set. There are always ways that you can use a paper pad differently. So if you're somebody that doesn't have a lot of paper, or maybe, you're like me and you're too messy to get out more than one collection at once, but you need a sympathy card that week, you can make one out of there for sure. Just get creative. And I'm using the same dimensions and the same concept as my other cards. I'm just using heartfelt sympathy on it in the end. And in these papers, I don't know if you've heard me say before, I typically can't handle vintage and white mixed together, like cream and white. It drives me batty. But in this, I think it worked for me because the cream was so pale. It was so pale that when I was putting these cards on bases later, you'll see I would audition, that's what my friend Katie calls it, a card with a white base and a cream base, because the papers were like antique white. They weren't like a Tim Holtz grunge kind of thing. I mean, they were so close to white, sometimes I thought they were white. The paper that says pumpkin pie and hot and has the writing, I don't love. I don't love it as a big pattern. I don't love it as a background pattern. I tried to make it work because it would have accents of black and I thought I would like it. I don't like it. I love the leaf one and I like the gingham one. I'm also not a fan of these tiny acorns. It's not that I don't like acorns, it's that I don't like that they're in rows. That bothers me. If they were just thrown down like the leaves, I would like it better. That's just me personally. I like really organic papers. And some things I just struggle to use. I inked up the edges because I thought it would make me like it more. I don't know if it worked. Then sometimes when I'm tidying, it's how I reset my brain. I just have to, okay, it got too cluttered, it got too crazy. I mean, I should take my left arm and push all that stuff out of the way probably, but I haven't done that. This card, I just started throwing stuff together and I love it. It was so cute. The little, is he a fox? Yeah, the fox came out of that Pebbles collection that I opened up earlier. The leaf came from Noni. I thought about putting a bit of cardstock behind the dear friends word to make sure that it didn't bend or ripple, but I just decided I didn't care. It's kind of a messier looking collage card, so the fox is probably going to be a little bit bent by the time it gets where it's going because it's partly on the leaf. I thought that was fine. I think it is just the cutest thing ever. And I think the gingham is nice because it's not too busy. That could have been a background paper too. Small pattern and big pattern is just all relative. It sometimes might be the mood or what patterns I have left also. Blessings, I keep fiddling with that big orange circle because I'm trying to make it better. When I was in bed at night, I had those orange circles that I had die cut the year before. They were in my box and I needed something to build the cluster on, so I tried them. Now this paper, I just loved it. I like leaves. I liked the layout of this, the asymmetrical parts. And the hello tag was an ephemera piece, and then I put it on that cardstock piece. It was just one of the things I'd thrown into my little kit and taken to bed with me. So I glued it together. It's very simple. I mean, if you saw this card and have watched a lot of my videos, you probably wouldn't have guessed, hey, Sarah made that one, but I just loved it. That paper was just so pretty, I couldn't cover it up with anything else. And I put glue dots behind the top. That Pebbles package is what I chopped up because I wanted it a little thicker than regular cardstock. What I was trying to do was get it up so the lump of the string didn't make a weird crinkle in that tag. Here I'm showing you my fancy board and what I'm doing. I'm just digging through it. These acorns were all die cut last year. So again, I just have this random stash. I went on a crazy gratitude making spree last year, gratitude journals, and I was die cutting and having a great time, and I ended up with extra stuff. And I'm trying to use some of that up this year. Not that I'm tired of it, just honestly, I wouldn't mind die cutting some more and playing with those cute little dies. Grateful Heart, it was kind of plain the way it was, so I was looking through my scraps to get some of that. And at one point, see how I set the acorns on the leaf pattern? I kind of liked that because it anchored it all together, but then I didn't really think about it and I glued the sentiment a little low. Had I gone higher, I could have done that. I have a tendency to center things horizontally and vertically, but then it doesn't really allow me to add in or come in with other accents. Does that make sense? Had I moved Grateful Heart up, it would have made more sense to put the acorns halfway on the paper. I don't know, though, it would have been better. By centering, you take away space where you could layer in more interest. When I watch Christy Marcotte's videos, I see what she does. She will put her cute little fox or whatever it is, maybe not in the center, so she has room to put more embellishments or sentiment next to him. I center everything, and then there's not really an ideal white space to put it in. I love this pumpkins thing. Same thing. It was ephemera. I glued it on craft cardstock and trimmed around it. The ephemera from Echo Park and Carta, it's kind of thin. It's not a brand where it's like a cardboard, and I just think it adds a little more interest if you mount it on cardstock. But after you do that about 10 or 15 times, you might think the rest of them are fine. I mentioned these stickers in my Smash That Small Paper Pad project share video, but in case you haven't seen that, I got these at Expo a long time ago, and I don't use them very often because I only have this color and I think white, but I just love them in my fall projects, and they just add a little bit of shine. They're one of those embellishments or accents that I talk about where a card or a project is more interesting if you don't see everything about it in the first glance, right? You have to look a little more to realize, oh, there's some shimmer on those flowers, or there's a gold sticker right there that I didn't notice at first, or there's a tiny, tiny puffy sticker that says grateful on there. So I think that just adds a little more interest. And just like these enamel dots, they're not big enough for you to notice at first, but they just add a little bit of interest. That acorn paper is just fighting me. I cut it, I was going to use it. It just doesn't speak to me. And you can see I don't necessarily lay things in an order and say, this is what I'm going to use first. I just lay things out and whatever speaks to me. Here, don't do that. I just about cut those all wrong because I was going to cut them to 3.5 for the width. I actually think I only had like one miscut in here. One that was like so blatant it couldn't be used for the card that I wanted. That's pretty cute. I have washi tape, several different fall washi tapes sitting off to the side. I really didn't do a great job remembering to use them, but washi tape is a great way to hide a seam if you want to match up two pieces of cardstock. Like if I had two pieces of the black plaid, which later I will do, but they weren't connected anymore, or this one where obviously the papers don't go together, but I don't want that seam to show. If you use washi tape, you don't get the lump in the middle. So then you don't have to put cardstock on the back of your ephemera to smooth it out. It's just a time saver and like a lazy person's card hint. That's why I use washi tape. Typically, I chop up every full-size piece and then go on to the scraps, but for this collection, I held back one or two because I was trying to be forward-thinking. In the next video, I'll be sorting the ephemera and embellishments and giving you a real-time explanation of my logic. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.